Hello, welcome to Landis Performance channel. I'm going to do a couple quick videos here on the Gen 7 thruster system. I see a lot of questions on the Facebook group and I get emails occasionally on these, so I figured I'd go over them, help everybody out. So in this video we'll talk about how to get the software to operate on newer laptops, different USB to serial connectors, since no laptops currently have serial ports on them anymore, and how to configure the system. So after you download the software, you'll have an icon on your desktop. So what we would do is right click on the icon, click Properties. From Properties, you'll see a compatibility folder tab. You got General, Shortcut, Security, Details, Previous Versions, Compatibility. Click on Compatibility. In the second section down, you'll say Compatibility Mode. Check mark the box and then come over and use the drop down, and it gives you all the different Windows operating systems that you can operate this software on. So we're going to pick 98 Windows ME. That was the software that was newest when, or the operating system that was newest when the CalMap was designed. And click Applied and click OK. And you can use XP because that was on the newer versions. The version firmware on the Facebook group is 6.1.5, which was the newest, latest version. It was out before they were purchased by Holly. And the thruster came out in the later years. So both of those systems will work all the way up to XP. So thruster's the same thing. Click on the icon, right click, get properties, compatibility folder, same. Everything's the same. All right, so let's go and open a CalMap file, our operating system. The computer we're working on right now is a Windows 10. And this system, I've had it connected to many vehicles and it works fine. You have a couple choices when you're opening the software: online to ECM, offline to file, and exit. Now, on your first time using the software, or anytime you're opening the software and you use the laptop and the serial ports or the COM ports for a different device, you have to follow this link up here. So you would go to online to ECM, but right click and this box will open up and it'll ask you to put the port number that your serial port is hooked up to. And this software will not work as a plug and play. It will not identify your COM port and automatically connect. You actually have to input that number. To do that, to find the COM port, on older Windows, you would go to your start and go that way to your device manager, or just in your search put device manager, and you don't have to do the whole thing. It comes automatically. So click in your device manager and then you would go down to ports and the comp and LPT ports. Click on that and then you'll see whichever COM port is being used. On this computer it's COM1, so that you can go ahead and close this out and then simply type in 1, use COM port. Now it's going to tell us that it can't find the car because we're not hooked to a car. So if you're dedicated laptop and you're only using the COM port for this software, you only have to do that once. But if you use the computer and are using the COM ports for different devices, for different things you're using on the car or in shop or even going online, whatever, you'll have to do that every time. But once you do it, you're good until you use that port for a different device. So if you're only, like I said, if you're only working on a car, or you're working on a car for a couple of days, you keep going back to the same thing. You don't have to do that because it already knows COM1. So hopefully that answers the question for everybody. Now it's the next question we see a lot on is instructions or information like that. What where can I find printed instructions? So I do have probably 20 Gen 7 or thruster installation guide books that I sell. Occasionally I put them on the group, and I also put them on eBay. So if somebody wanted to contact me, I surely can set you up with one of those, and that basically has everything in a printed format in a loose 3-ring binder. But let's just open the software. So this is one of my buddy's cars. We'll just open up the tune. All right, so now we're at the main dashboard. So from the main dashboard, or anywhere in the software, you can click F1, and that takes you to the help section. And then you have 3 subdirectories there. Another convenient way is you go up to help, and then you can get information from the program. This tells you what ECU version the tune was that was written, whether it's EDIS compatibility and dual quad, whatever. All that information that you can get from there. You can get calibration tool help. That's the help menu. You can get drawings and schematics. And this has a drop down where you can get different things. Let's go Ford injector harness. And there will give you the breakdown of where all they go, the pins, everything else. Universal IPU. If you're doing a crank trigger system, you could build the sub harness from the 8-pin harness main connector is marked ignition. And you can go down to view access privileges. So in this mode, everything is accessible. That's basically talking about the pro keys, standard keys, and the light keys. For people that don't know what that means, the systems were designed to only give so much privilege and what you could get to in the software. Pro gave you access to everything. They tried to only sell those to racers and to tuners. And then standard was what 99% of the people got. And then there was light, which was for plug and play crate engine tunes. With the light application, you could only adjust idle and timing. Everything else was pre-written and pre-calibrated. If you have a CalMap cable and it's got the little black box and it usually had an orange sticker on there, your level of access was usually written with a black Sharpie in one of the corners. It would say L, S, or P for light, standard, or pro. What you can do, there's some tricks around this. You can find a file that had pro privileges by opening a file and then going to the help and then view access privileges. Now you could take this tune calibration and rewrite everything, and you would have offline pro privileges. To get it online, you actually have to have the pro key, which of course they're not made anymore, so you'd have to find somebody that's got one or something like that. But a standard is all you really need, unless you're getting into a high-end turbo build or something like that. And if you're really doing that much, you need that much capability, you really should just go ahead and purchase a Holley HP or a Holley Dominator and be done with it. Anyway, and then the last thing is keyboard shortcuts. So this will tell you all of your different keystrokes to get to whatever you need to get to. All your Fs, F10s, F1s, all that, controls, alts, and then what adjustments you have on the 16x16 tables, 8x8, and 4x4s. And then single value editing and graphic editing, configuration screens. So it just basically gives you all your little shortcuts. So you don't have to remember any of the shortcuts. You can just go help, keyboard shortcuts, and boom, you're there. Now, on the main screen, you have a lot of these a lot of these shortcuts are right here in front of you. So you got F1 for help, F2 for the VE table, F3 for Spark table, F4 for your target AFR, F5 for data logging, F6 to save a calibration, F7 to upload a calibration, F8 clears the error codes, F9 establishes communication, F11 is for your TAL table. We'll do another video on that. And F12 is for acceleration threshold. And of course, F10 is to save when you're in an actual table. Another nice feature in the Excel software for the help files is if you open up a table, like our configuration table, and you see there's this go crank index offset. You can click on that and then hit F1 and it'll take you straight to that portion of the instructions, and it'll give you a brief description of what it is, and a lot of times it'll tell you the resolution, and sometimes it gives you even a starting point. So you do that. You can go to outputs, highlight that, and there it explains what that switch does. So anywhere in the software you can do that. So we'll go to throttle follower. Again, F1, and it tells you this is what that table does. This function is really easy to use, and it's really helpful, especially while you're trying to tune a car and you're trying to figure out something, and you're like, well, what's the screen do? F1, and it tells you. So that's pretty good for all that. So let's go and look at a couple things that would help you out. So you've got diagnostics. So these are really good when you got a car and you got an issue, you can't figure out what's going on with it. This basically is telling you what your sensors are reading, ignition timing and such. If you have anything calibrated for nitrous and stuff, just a kind of quick overview. You can look at everything and say, okay, yeah, that looks good. Throttle position, ignition voltage, all those things will, your throttle position, you could actuate the pedal and you see 0 to 100, 0 to 100. Ignition voltage, obviously you need to have ignition voltage. The system will not work under 9 volts. So trying to start the car, the car's got 12.5 and you crank it and it drops down to 9 or 8.9 or something, slow cranking, the car's not going to start. And when you start getting the low voltages like that, you'll get voltage spikes, and that you could, damage your ECU. So it's good to just check you have voltage before you get going. Then you got ECU status. This screen is really good. Here you've got a crank sensor. These are all to simulate an LED. So you can see base target table is highlighted. You'll get a red and a blue here. So while you're cranking the car, the crank sensor will blink red every ignition event. And if you're running a dual sync, every cam event, it'll blink blue. And you'll get a tooth count here. If your fuel pump is being activated, this will turn red. If you have torque converter lockup, that'll turn red when it turns on. Nitrous, AC disable, fan, shift light. These are all things that you could, while the vehicle's running, and you could see if it's actually working. If the computer is commanding fuel pump, this will turn red. If your fuel pump's not working, then you have to look at what's going on in the car. You either have a wiring issue, a defective relay, maybe the fuel pump itself is not working. So it's good for troubleshooting quickly to help you get the vehicle up and running without pulling your hair out. And again, here in the corner, you got throttle position, IAC position, pulse width, ignition voltage. So a lot of times you're going to see this screen either while you're cranking the engine or when the engine is running, and you can see what's going on. And again, F1 for help right on the top. Error code list. This system being designed by Ford software development people. They did a lot of things us MX asked for back in the day, that there were some states that would require a check engine light to turn on. So to make it so we could use this system in cars that were computer controlled but weren't easily tunable with the chips and such that they had back in the day. ACCEL system comes with a mil output, so you could wire that into the car. So if you had to go through emissions or state inspection, you could turn the key on, the mil light would turn on, say check engine, and then start the car and it would go out, and that would satisfy the requirements for inspections. So it was convenient. But it was also helpful because if there is a system failure, a sensor failure, you could get a code out of it. The check engine light would come on, and then you could plug in, and down here on the bottom border you would get an error code, and then you could come to this screen and you could actually look up the error. Now a lot of times you'll see code 72 crank cam error if you've got using magnetic triggers. It's really sensitive. Some cars just have a lot of EMI and stuff, and that will come on. You can actually turn this code off. Let's go to like coolant and air temp. I've seen those always being issues for people. Low ECT. So if you got a code 42 and the computer's saying, hey, you got a low ECT signal, what it'll do is it's going to default to 50 degrees, because if you defaulted to the ECT's bottom message, or if you had the ECT unplugged, minus 40 would be the default. So, obviously you'd have major choke, major fueling, cold start fueling. So when you have the codes, they usually will have a default. So it's got a default that it's set to, so that the vehicle can stay running until you can get it fixed, just like a regular computer controlled car. So this is always good, and you can either click here F8 or you can click F8 and it'll clear the codes. Clear error codes. So at this page, you can actually disable codes. So say you're not using a manifold surface temperature. That's something that's in the they don't have that. I thought they did. That's in the main thing. But anything that you're having a problem with, or maybe you're not using, you could go here and check it or uncheck it, and that would make that code not come on anymore. So one other thing you can do, if you're getting a program from somebody, or if you want to keep information, you can fill this section out and save it to the ECM, and it'll put like assembly notes for the tune. You can put your intake in, your cam information in, what kind of triggering stuff. If I write a tune and send it to somebody, I'll put the dealer name, phone, email, all that stuff. So that way, if somebody gets in there, they can look at that and say, oh, I know this guy did it. Here's a phone number, we can contact this person. Just handy information, just where you can have a little comments card built into the software. Up here in your view file, this is handy stuff. You can view a table from a file. You can save and send. So what that's really good for is you have a VE table here. You could save this file, give it a name, and then go back and maybe copy and paste it to another tune. This computer will not copy and paste. So we can go to view, and we can go to what I've done here is I've set every table file as a preset. So if I'm starting a file, I can just grab this and like target AFR. I can grab that. Now that there's a target AFR for a 1-bar system, if I'm happy with that, I could open up somebody else's file, or if this was a different file, and then I could go down here and I could send it right to the ECM instead of having to fill out all those cells, or to change all the cells from one tune to another tune. You can just take a file from another tune, as long as you've saved it, and then you can download it right into a new tune, and just makes things easy. Now, as far as connecting your CalMap cables to your laptop. Most computers do not have a serial RS-232 port anymore. So you want to go and look for something like this. There's tons of these out there. You want to use a USB 2.0 to serial RS-232. You don't want to use a USB 3.0 or anything higher. There may be some communication issues. I've actually have this one here. Unfortunately, there's no name on it, and this one is actually one that used to come with the Holley kit, the ACCEL kits. So quite a few of these will work. I've never had an issue. Used to have a Belkin that I bought at Office Depot, but you can get these online, and they're actually pretty cheap now. I mean, here's one on Amazon. See how much this is? $10. So, and you see serial USB 2.0 to 9-pin RS-232. That is your correct. And this one even lists that it's good for XP and Vista. So that would be things that I would look for in the description to make sure that it'll work with a Windows 98 or XP or any of those, so you won't have any issue with communication problems. Another thing I wanted to share, the last cable that ACCEL had made for the Gen 7 and the thruster was this cable, which had a USB connector on the end of it for your laptop. This would have came if you ordered a cable by itself, or if you ordered a system that would have a engine analyzer box with the ECU. What that box did was it allowed you to do internal data logging, and it gave you wideband compatibility. So with this harness, it has 3 legs. I always ask people when they can't get communication with the car, do you have a 3-leg cable? And most of them don't know what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. So on this cable, in the box, there's a switch, a 3-way switch. So if you wanted to communicate with your Gen 7 or thruster ECU, you would plug the USB cable into your laptop, plug the weather pack connector to your CalMap connector on your ECU, and you would have communication with your ECU. If you wanted to upload or download a data file from your engine analyzer, you would unplug the weather pack connector and plug in the serial 9-pin connector into the engine analyzer box. If you wanted to do a data log without your laptop in the car, you would unplug the USB, connect the RS-232 9-pin serial connector to your engine analyzer, and then connect the weather pack to the ECM. When you're trying to get communication with the vehicle, you cannot have this cable plugged into all 3 items at one time. It won't work. Occasionally it may try to get communication, but it'll fail. I've seen where guys would install these and connect everything and tuck the cable up under the dash, and that way you just take your USB and plug in your laptop, and their thought process was that you would be able to get communication. Well, that's not the case. It will not work that way. So if you have one of these cables and you have all 3 ends connected and you don't have communication, or you're having communication errors or issues, this is why. One other tidbit about communication cables is these cables are not shielded very well, and if you're working on a car that has an extreme amount of RFI or EMI, RFI is radio frequency interference, and EMI, I believe, is electromagnetic interference. This cable can work as an antenna, and it will mess you up and try to knock you off. If you're getting connection and it's working most of the time, but then you start the car up and it doesn't work, or I mean, it could even do it with the car engine, with the key on, engine off, because if you may have an electric device like a cooling fan or something like that could be producing the noise. There's really not a good way of figuring out RFI or EMI. What we used to do is had a little AM transistor radio, and you'd go by the car, and if it got static, then you had RFI problems. But That's the only way I knew of testing them. If you have connectivity problems, look for bad grounds, poor grounds, the engine to the chassis, plug wires that weren't crimped properly, stuff like that. Anything that's got an electric motor that turns, that can create noise. So just be aware of that. You're having communication issues, don't throw the towel in. Just have to do a little bit more research and due diligence, but it will work. So I think we're going to wrap this up at this point, and then I'll do a couple more little short ones, keep these short and sweet. So keep an eye out for more videos coming out. Subscribe to the channel, leave comments. I answer them as fast as I can. Ring the bell, you'll get instant notifications when I drop another video. And share with your friends, and we'll share it on the Facebook ACCEL DFI page, our group. And I believe that's it. See ya.